Hey out there. This is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019, and it's about 10:28 in the evening here in Northern California. And I'm going to talk about a lot of different stuff as usual. And I kind of wanted the theme to be just understanding, wrapping our minds around what a significant role that money plays in everything that goes on in our lives. From every waking moment of our lives, money is playing a role in the way we think, the way we speak, the way we behave. It's a huge controlling factor. And I want to point out how ridiculous that is on its face. That we, of all the creatures, by far and away, nobody can argue, are intellectually at the top of the food chain. Yet this is the burden that we have to carry. That to understand words is critical. We bandy terms about constantly. There is massive social, political, and economic misunderstandings and misgivings and lack of communication and what I call the Babylon effect, because there is so much ignorance, there is so much confusion about these issues that are really very simple, but they've been deliberately convoluted by these kingpins, the masterminds, the grand puppeteers that rule over the affairs of men. These hypocrites, the ones that Jesus used to rail against. They were absolutely repugnant in the sight of God, these kind of people. Their fruits are rotten, they stunk to high heavens. They're liars, they're cheaters, they're swindlers, they're schemers, they're fraudsters. Yet these are the ones that are in control of the affairs of men. These are the ones that create the policies that we're all forced to live under, that are crammed down our throats from birth. And it ought not be this way. But yet we accept things as they are because it's easier. It's going with the flow. It's the path of least resistance. So we want to comply and conform to fit in to this current scene. But this current scene is absurd. It's preposterous. And no other creature on the face of the earth would ever tolerate it. Okay? I mean, when you really dissect money and we define what exactly it is, it's really a very abstract notion. It's an idea. It's a precept. It's concocted. It's conjured up. It's a form of sorcery, therefore. I mean, we can't really say it's a commodity. You could say, well, silver and gold and oil or any fungible asset, stocks and bonds. We could say these are money, Bitcoin maybe. There's a lot of things that we can consider money or of monetary value. But money itself is really kind of an ace up the sleeve of these people. It's it's like a magic act, really. I mean, when you think about the ability to print money, literally, and it's got as much worth as the gold or silver or oil or stocks or bonds or any other fungible asset. And really, you're just talking about the cost of the paper and the ink and the artistry and the printing press. And then you can make as much money as you want, and you could essentially buy up all the assets in the world that aren't necessarily money, but they work as money, like the silver and gold and other fungible assets. So it's a real conundrum that just normal, upright, decent human beings have to face. Okay, it's a real pain in the behind, and it's like a game. This thing we call capitalism. Again, we need to dissect the words. We need to define the terms. Then you look at a term like socialism. Socialism is these both these terms have everything to do with money, right? But we could say, oh no, these are political terms. Are they? What are they? So what does political mean? And I learned in high school from my teacher Bob Lisner, who taught American history and United States government, that politics and money are really hand in glove, hand in hand. It's one and the same for all intents and purposes. It's the politicians and the government deciding how they're going to spend the money, the taxes that we pay. And so anyhow, the point is here is that we're in a lot of trouble, okay, with this money thing. We've been in a lot of trouble for a very long time, thousands of years, and the problem hasn't gone away. The people that are in control are not nice people, and they're swindlers, they're thieves and robbers, and they have no compunction about enslaving people by any means necessary, and money works just fine. It's a very powerful entity. It's an entity. It's not really a commodity. I mean, what's the price for buying money, you know? Well, you say, well, we trade. I traded in my gold and got money, right? Cash, fiat currency. Whether it was digital or otherwise, it's calculated in dollars, right? Federal Reserve notes here in America. And if you've got the money printing press, you have as much money as you say you have. And essentially that's what we've got here. We've got the top politicians in cahoots with the money printing class. And they're ganging up on regular, everyday, decent, blue-collar, labor class folks, people that strive to enter the middle class. And they're beating the snot out of us. And it's not right. And if you don't care about others, someday there's going to be one that doesn't care about you. And it's a point of salvation. It really is. It comes down to caring about others as much as you care about yourself, or take a hike. Okay? That's what's coming down the pike. And we all have to realize this is very serious stuff. This business about money and this power, this wanton, vast power it has over the affairs of men. Everything we think, say, and do, it affects and infects. Okay, socialism. What is socialism? If you ask one person what socialism is, that thinks it's a great idea because they absolutely hate capitalism and they see that as the alternative. They see it as a more fair alternative. They see it as an egalitarian alternative. Okay, and somebody else says, wait a minute, this person's totally ignorant. They don't know the first damn thing about socialism because they're looking at the empirical evidence of what socialism has done to every country that's embraced it. Okay? And that's all they see. They put blinders on because they don't want to hear about any success stories in Europe. Okay? They just want to believe what they believe. They want to point to Venezuela and all the other failed socialist states like Russia, for example. And of course, Hitler called himself a socialist. And a lot of people that really have the best intentions and call themselves socialists that's not what they're thinking when you say that word to them. They see it as fair. They see it as good, as benevolent, as altruistic, and egalitarian. Do you understand? So there's this huge gulf between the understanding of these terms. And government is another term. What is government? What's in your head? What's in my head? Okay, it's a big deal. It makes a big difference in how we perceive things. And of course, as they say, perception is reality. So, if we're ever to have a fruitful, productive conversation where we glean some benefit, okay, and we can grow and become wiser and better people, then we have to first of all establish what definition we're using for a term. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? And let's be honest and forthright and discuss the pros and cons and say, okay, I get it. and understand that as noble and as virtuous as the Robin Hood thing is, which essentially at the end of the day is what is in the mind of a lot of socialists. It's simply taking from the haves, giving to the have-nots. It's wealth redistribution. And they see this as a good thing, especially in light of the fact that all that they've witnessed, so many people, their whole lives, is crony capitalism. And crony capitalism is the antithesis of true capitalism. That's coming from a guy that's well studied on the identification factors for true capitalism. How to, for example, what is the litmus test, for example, for progress? Okay, and you find out that it's prosperity, and it's a prosperity that lifts all ships, a tide of prosperity that lifts all boats, because it's based on things like supply and demand and free market principles, risk and reward, competition, and all these things. And it has to do with society, that's we the people, finding easier and easier methods of producing the things that we want and need. And therefore, what happens is your money automatically, organically, naturally goes up in worth without being forced. Okay, it's just what happens. You don't need government intervention or anything else. It's just natural market forces taking over. So wages could have gone down over the years and still be worth more. Okay, this would have been the normal thing to happen under true capitalism. You understand? Your currency goes up in worth as your cost of living goes down. Very natural occurrence. And we haven't seen that for very good reason, because the people that are manipulating our reality don't want that to happen. They understand that that means the captives being set free. They're slaves. Essentially, that's it. And you can see by looking at minimum wage how utterly, and I firmly believe, firmly contend, deliberately remiss the Labor Department has been in giving commensurate cost of living adjustments, which could have prevented the debasement of our currency in the first place, the ever-growing cost of living inflation that's occurred. Okay, it would have prevented that, because employers would have rightfully complained and said, hey, what do you mean by mandate a law? I've got to pay my workers more. What's the dealio? Okay, what's the basis? What's the justification? So there's got to be accountability here. There's got to be oversight. There's got to be checks and balances. And if there was, it couldn't have happened like this. And what I mean is that they've enslaved people. They've normalized slavery. Okay, it didn't happen overnight. Incrementally, it's happened. Okay, because if they tried to do this overnight, if people making 90 cents an hour 50 years ago, 60 years ago, okay, you can look up the statistics for yourself. It's all online. But let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, it was $1 an hour 55 years ago. Okay, it was. If you look it up, you can find it's approximately that. But wages could be now 50 cents an hour